In abduction cases involving victims over the age of 80, time is not just important, it is decisive. The first 72 hours are critical. After that, the probability of recovery declines sharply. Each passing day shifts the balance between rescue and recovery. Nancy Guthrie has now been missing for nearly a month. 25 days without proof of life. 25 days without a named suspect. 25 days of silence stretching across a Tucson neighborhood that once felt ordinary. And then, without warning, federal agents returned to her home. Not uniformed patrol officers, not routine canvassing, not flashing lights or hurried activity. Senior investigators, federal prosecutors, dark vehicles with tinted windows, easing quietly into a driveway that had already been processed, photographed, and sealed. The garage door opened briefly to admit one vehicle, then closed again. Whatever happened inside was shielded from public view. Now, this was not the urgency of a fresh crime scene. It was controlled, measured, deliberate. And that raises a critical question. Why return now? If the property had already been processed in the first 48 hours, if evidence had been cataloged and logged, if visible signs of struggle had already been documented, why conduct what appeared to be a final sweep nearly a month later? Investigators do not revisit a sealed scene at this level unless something has shifted. A new lead. Now a contradiction, a theory taking shape. Because when federal prosecutors walk through a scene long after the tape first went up, they are not searching blindly. They are testing the strength of a case. The shift from rescue to prosecution. The convoy arrived before dawn. Black SUVs moved through the quiet cul-de-sac. Engines low, movement slow. There was no chaos, no public statements, no visible urgency. This looked less like a search and more like preparation. Inside the home, every step appeared methodical. Gloves were changed frequently. Cameras documented each corner. Items were logged carefully into chain of custody. That detail matters. Chain of custody is not about finding someone. It's about proving something in court. And that suggests the investigation may be entering a different phase. What began as a mission of recovery may now be shifting toward building a prosecutable case. The $1 million catalyst. Then came another major development. Ms. Savannah Guthrie publicly announced a $1 million reward for information leading to Nancy's return. Within hours, more than 1,500 tips flooded in. Phone calls, emails, anonymous messages, claims, guesses, theories. Inside FBI offices, analysts worked through the surge. Every tip had to be assessed, verified, categorized. Some were credible, many were not. But volume changes investigations. A reward does more than encourage witnesses. It destabilizes silence. It pressures anyone withholding information. It forces hidden dynamics into the open. The psychological impact of a reward of that size cannot be underestimated. It turns a quiet investigation into a national focal point. A pattern emerging? As tips were evaluated, investigators reportedly began revisiting surveillance footage and archived material. One emerging line of inquiry focused not just on opportunity, but fixation. It is important to clarify, no official confirmation has been made regarding motive. However, investigators in high-profile cases often consider psychological dimensions, especially when public figures are connected to victims. One theory sometimes examined in similar cases is erotomania, a delusional fixation in which an individual believes a higher status person is emotionally connected to them. Again, there has been no official confirmation that this applies here, but the possibility of obsession-driven behavior changes the investigative lens. If the crime was motivated by fixation rather than chance, it reframes everything. In that framework, Nancy may not have been the primary focus, but a means to leverage attention. That possibility widens the scope dramatically. Surveillance and preparation. Earlier surveillance footage reportedly showed an individual near the property days before the disappearance, and the person appeared to move deliberately, observing entry points, pacing areas of the yard, studying thresholds. That suggests preparation, planning, intent. But what investigators later found at the scene told a more complicated story. There were signs of struggle, disruption, evidence that the encounter did not unfold smoothly. Preparation collided with resistance, and that collision created what may be the most critical window in this entire case: 41 minutes. And between the moment the security camera went dark and the moment Nancy's pacemaker stopped transmitting, 41 minutes elapsed. 41 minutes where theory met reality. In crisis psychology, when a carefully planned event begins to unravel, predictability collapses. Controlled movements turn reactive. Strategy becomes improvisation, and improvisation increases risk. If the abductor encountered resistance, panic may have entered the equation. Plans change under pressure. Decisions accelerate. Those 41 minutes may hold the clearest answers, but they remain the least visible. Community impact. Meanwhile, the Tucson neighborhood has changed. Barricades have appeared. Media presence has ebbed and flowed. Residents move with more caution. Porch lights stay on longer. Conversations are quieter. Children are guided carefully past caution tape. The absence of one elderly woman has altered the rhythm of an entire street. True crime attention has amplified the tension. Online speculation spreads rapidly. Armchair theories multiply. For law enforcement, managing the scene now includes containment, protecting evidence while balancing public scrutiny. What was once an ordinary cul-de-sac now carries the weight of unresolved uncertainty. The systemic questions. As investigations deepen, broader questions often surface. If an individual suspected in such a crime had prior warning signs, whether documented threats, prior contact, or digital red flags, it forces examination of systems meant to identify high-risk behavior. Were warning mechanisms triggered? Were concerns previously reported? Was there any indication of escalation? There is no confirmed evidence yet suggesting systemic failure. But in high-profile cases, such reviews are standard. The intersection of public visibility, social media exposure, and vulnerability has become increasingly complex. In today's environment, now every public appearance leaves a digital trace. Every routine can be mapped. Every familiar location can be studied. For public figures and their families, that visibility can create unintended exposure. The line between recognition and risk has grown thinner. The 30-day mark. As the calendar approaches 30 days, the emotional landscape shifts. Hope remains, but urgency evolves. Investigations move from rapid response to evidentiary endurance. When every observation is documented not just for immediate action, but for long-term accountability. The house itself has transformed from a site of potential rescue to a repository of testimony, walls cataloged, floors documented, objects preserved exactly as found. And still, everything returns to those 41 minutes. What happened inside that window? Was the plan executed as intended, or did it fracture under resistance? Did improvisation lead to escalation? Time in investigations is both adversary and ally. The longer the silence, the heavier it becomes. Where the case stands. As of now, no suspect has been publicly named, no charges have been announced, no confirmed proof of life has been released, but the return of federal prosecutors to the scene suggests forward movement. Investigations do not intensify quietly without direction. Something has shifted. Whether that shift leads to recovery or prosecution remains uncertain. The broader implication. When one person disappears, the impact radiates outward. It tests investigative systems. It tests community resilience. It tests the limits of prevention. It forces examination of vulnerability, not only personal, but structural. Somewhere beyond the perimeter of that Tucson home, someone knows exactly what occurred in those 41 minutes. That knowledge exists. It has simply not yet surfaced. Until it does, the house remains in shadow, and the neighborhood remains watchful, and federal offices remain lit long after midnight. This story is not over, and the next development may redefine what we understand about planning, obsession, and the fragile boundary between visibility and safety. Music fades.